This rad album cover was created using MidJourney and my analog video gear, and this is the process of how I did it. I love mixed media. It is, even though that's not how it works, the medium that I prefer working in. A blend of analog, digital, and physical art and creativity, and especially using all the new tools available. So, obviously with this channel, I've been using AI art generators and art assist tools for a while, and I've used the various tools before then for many years now. And we wanted to build a new album cover for the single release of Mega Buster, the first track we're releasing from our Chip Rock album for Backing Track, our royalty-free, stream-safe, video-safe music service where we have rock, metal, and we're expanding to cool stuff like chip rock for those of you who like the chiptune feel. We've got a normal version and a chiptune version. It's freaking awesome. You're hearing the song now. We wanted to capture that Super Nintendo kind of Mega Man battle-y vibe. And so we started, my producer was going ahead and generating some 16-bit kind of character ideas in MidJourney and gave me his selects that he wanted me to kind of choose from and work with. So I chose the two that I liked the most. One I preferred the background from, and the other I liked the character more from. The others I either didn't like the character as much, thought they were too detailed, or really did not like the distracting background. Then I've got to work with Photoshop, and Subject selected out the character itself from one, and then Subject selected the character in the second one, filled that in using generative fill and content aware fill, and spent way too long cleaning up the background for the result that we ended up with. You'll see that in a little bit. But I wanted it, I didn't want any artifacts. That's the thing with AI art that everyone points out is the wonky faces, the hands, the artifacts, the things that you didn't want. I have the Photoshop skills and design capabilities to eliminate the things that I don't want, especially with this faux pixel art kind of aesthetic. So that is what I did, and I just kind of built me some guides afterwards to lay out where I wanted my character to go, the size I wanted. I used the puppet warp to kind of move the muzzle flash where I wanted, and then started playing around with some glows and some overlays to really make it look like he's blended into the light of the scene and one of those typical, wall border lights that comes in a lot of Super Nintendo games, and that the muzzle flare of the blaster is falling back and making him glow. Looking really, really good so far. The next step was to then resize it. So this is the trick to get fake pixel art of anything, is to resize it down to a really low resolution. I actually should have gone lower than this, but I was nervous about losing too many details, so I went down to 128 by 128 resolution. I went back and forth with this using some high pass filters to kind of really sharpen up the character and the blockiness of the character so that the details would shine through between the different resizes. But resize down to like 128 by 128, I would have honestly gone to maybe 96 by 96 was probably going to be better, but I didn't do that here. And then you resize back up to the size that you want. Now, since I am going to output this with analog video gear to a CRT TV, I only need 640 by 480, so I don't need to go super big. And so I wound up resizing up to 960 by 960, double what I want, using the nearest neighbor scaling method. This is important. Using the preserve details or the automatic when you downscale is fine, but when you upscale back, you need to have nearest neighbor. This is integer scaling, which will preserve the blocky pixels as they are. Otherwise, it's just going to look like you awkwardly shrink and blown back up your image, and it'll be blurry. This preserves those sharp pixels, and again, I played around with some shadows and some high-pass filtering here to just kind of make the character pop. Now, I should have, again, spent more time on the background, making it lighter or adding in some of those details to make them a little bigger as it falls off a little bit. But then we route it through my analog video gear. So for this, I use OBS Studio with a deck link outputting to composite video to this lovely Commodore CRT. I capture it with my Panasonic GH5S. I've just built a little cardboard box shroud around it, so no light gets in, we got no reflections, anything like that. The GH5S has this wonderful synchro scan feature that lets you dial into roughly the exact refresh rate of your CRT to prevent the scan effect. Now, for some captures, I actually use a 1/50th shutter speed to get the flicker that I want, but for this, I wanted crisp captures, so I used 1/60.1-ish shutter speed to get no refresh lines. Took a little bit of video, and then we brought that into DaVinci Resolve. Now with DaVinci Resolve, I bring in the Cinelike D video footage and use a plugin called Film Convert Nitrate. And this is not sponsored. I know they sponsor a lot of YouTubers, although I'm open to it because I use it all the time to convert that color space to a more filmic preset, and then played around a ton with the exposure, the contrast, the colors, the effect of the film, and all of that to get the kind of... it's a weird blend between the poppy, contrasty, saturated colors of the Super Nintendo look that we're going for, while also having the kind of faded, paper-like album art look that I'm trying to blend it with. So kind of a blend of Super Nintendo chunky pixels and grungy paper artwork. It's a weird juxtaposition, but I love it so much. I disabled the grain on the plugin for this. I use it for my videos, but I disabled it here so that I can add the texture and have more control in post in Photoshop. So once I was happy with the results out of Resolve, I used the transform tools to straighten it back up because it is a curved tube that I'm shooting and my camera isn't exactly positioned appropriately. So I used the lens correction tools and the transform tools to get it as straight as I thought it should be, and pop that back into Photoshop. I exported the still as a TIFF, brought that into Photoshop, and first I needed to bring it in on its own and resize up to the resolution of the album art that we're doing, which is 13 inches by 13 inches, so roughly 3600 pixels by 3600 pixels, and then brought that over to our album art canvas here, did a little bit more transforming to warp it to the exact look that I wanted, and from there I just mostly played around with high pass sharpening, trying to bring out the mask of the CRT a little bit more and kind of emphasize the blockiness of the character. Again, I wish the background was a little bit lighter, and I wish I had done a little bit more to preserve the actual blocky look of the character, but with the CRT gradient, you get the idea. The mask, the moire, the texture of the screen, ends up creating this cool pattern that kind of looks like dithering or like a halftone. So we almost have a blend of Super Nintendo-esque pixels in a comic booky halftone, which I really love, honestly. And once I was happy with it there, that was mostly the end. But from there, I went ahead and slapped on the text. So I paid way too much money for this 8-bit looking font, and then our artist text and things like that. And then we started adding some texture, got some folded paper overlays, some splatter grain overlays, just super subtle things you don't really notice, but I like adding in there, as well as some film grain overlay. And I even have it going over the text just to make it a little nice and noisy. I did want to mention, I didn't screen capture this, but the top title text I did actually blur ever so slightly using a field blur with noise, so that it wasn't super crisp sharp, that it was a little blurry to look like it fit in with the softer image a little bit. And from there, I just played around with the HSL sliders and the posterize effect to try to get that bright Super Nintendo look back just a little bit. I don't want it to be too punchy, especially because I was going to print this, but I wanted to desaturate the reds a little bit because they're a little overpowering, boost the blues, use a little bit of a camera raw filter to just bring out the texture. And then, because this tiny little highlight that got resized weird or whatever below the blaster, like aura, was really distracting to me, I used Clone Stamp to get rid of that, because that was driving me nuts. And yeah, that's the album artwork. I used analog video gear, a CRT, a camera, AI art generators, Photoshop skills, and then I printed it to make album art. This Mega Buster track is the first track off of our Chip Rock album. We're releasing a couple of these very soon. You can check it out, stream for free, and use in your videos at backingtrack.gg. The track is available today. Go check it out. If you want to learn more about how to use MidJourney to generate cool stuff like this, you have to check out my MidJourney Beginner's Guide video right here. And go check out my asset shop at glitch.mov. I just set this up. I'm super stoked for it. And remember to be kind, rewind.